So, should we get started?
Yeah.
I'm gonna respect the people who are here, and whoever is not here yet, maybe they'll join halfway, but we'll at least start the conversation. And I should say, I don't know, Edie, if you want to start with that, or if you want me to start, but I think I should say just at the beginning that these sessions are really supposed to be open sessions for like pivoting and talking about whatever, the audience, whatever the attendees here want to talk about. So if you have a question, if you want to, please send if you want to really talk about a topic that you want us to talk about. This is supposed to be a completely like free flow. We'll talk about whatever's up. We do have some things that we'll cover just in case, nobody has any specific things, but as I'm saying this, go into your lead docket, pop up some questions, things that you may be wondering, or how you can do something, or an issue that you're seeing now, and bring those in. Those are the best sessions, is when people ask specific questions and we kind of go into the nitty gritty and we get to help you with something. So let's do that.
All right. We
I
have
actually do
some
have a
questions.
question.
Yeah. When a case is entered in Filevine, how can we feed the information back into Lead Docket? Awesome. So that's a great question. Um, just to kind of make you aware of how the integration works. So when you first push the lead from Lead Docket into Filevine, it's a one-time push, meaning that once you push it and that project is created inside of Filevine, then it's just a one-time push. Now, you've probably heard of what it's called face mapping. And face mapping is used to be able to map a face inside of Filevine back into Lead Docket to kind of update the lead. But there's two things that I want to make you aware of. Face mapping does not bring in back custom data back into Lead Docket. It only brings in settlement information if it's mapped, meaning that we have, let's say, the face archive mapping into the closed status. And Ivan, if you hit edit on that button right there so that they can see, and then this is where the mapping happens, meaning this is where we tell the system, gather the settlement information from these fields from inside Filevine. So you're able to map back the settlement information, but that's it. You're not able to map back actual custom data or intake data or case data into Lead Docket. Does that explain that? Does that answer your question? Ivan, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's a really good explanation. Basically, pushing back from Filevine back into Lead Docket, this is really the only systematic way to do it is through this thing called phase mapping. And just I'm gonna go back so you can see how I got here. Is I go into this pending Filevine mapping, and then you see there are the options here. So phase mapping all that it is, and maybe there's two things that it can't push back. It can't push back the phase, right? So just to clarify there, so I can say when a phase in Filevine hits, this, sorry, because our phases are all messed up because of our test environment. But when the phase in Filevine says, oh man, don't ever do this in your Filevine, please do not create this many phases. But when the phase in Filevine says litigation, change my lead in lead docket to a certain status or substatus.
Right.
So that's one thing that you can't push back, I would say, right? You can push back the phases.
Mhm.
And specifically, if you push back into the closed status, specifically, you see how these fields pop up. And that's kind of repeating a little bit what Edie was saying is then you get to select. Do you want to pull a fee, a settlement, a referral fee? These are specific fields that you have. You don't have anything else. So I can pull a note from my settlement. I can pull the settlement date. And it's going to say which date do you want to use for that. And you can pick, these are Filevine fields. Okay.
And
So that's
something
it.
too
Mhm.
that I want to mention because I do see it happen often is when you have that face mapping set up, to go into the closed status. If you don't use most of the time, we recommend for you to use archive. And the reason being is because the way that it works is that in order for the data to come back, the settlement data to come back, the data has to be inputted and saved into those data fields in Filevine and then updated the face to the face that you have the face mapping. If you, for example, obviously, if a paralegal updates the face to, let's say, settled. And then after they update the face in Filevine, they go and lead in Filevine and update the settlement information. Even if you have face mapping turned on, it's not going to work. It's not going to come over. So that's why, for kind of like safety, we like to just use archive because that will tell us, hey, they have already entered the information. It's already been settled, paid out. The information's in there, so we are archiving it. And that way we know that the data has been entered and it will come back into Lead Docket.
That's a very good point. So yeah, when we do map these things, it's still like only when the face changes that it gets this information. So it's not like, oh, if I go in there at any point, I add a fee and it shows up in Lead Docket. That's not how it works. It's only on the face change. That's a very good point. Um, I hope that answered. Okay. If that makes sense, that's really kind of the extent, I think, of the pushback information. We've done some other stuff, obviously, with Zapier and with other automation. I have one client that, for example, refer out cases. So you can create an automation that every time that you put a case in Filevine and they're referred out, it triggers an automation either with Workato or with Zapier, and then it gets data from Filevine and puts it into Lead Docket. That's more of a custom build, but we've done it a couple of times where data from Filevine is actually flowing back, but through a separate automation that is not native to Lead Docket. So if you're trying to do something more complex like that, it is possible, but it would involve like a custom, automation there. And it's not too complicated. Actually, it's fairly simple to build. Awesome. Do we want to, well, any more questions that you guys have, please feel free to throw them on the Q&A. We'll want to cover something briefly about integrations today, right, Edie? I think we want to talk a little bit about how to connect Lead Docket to possible sources.
Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about integrations, how the integrations work in Lead Docket. Just because I have recently been working with a lot of vendors and they're asking for API keys and different ways to integrate in Lead Docket. So I kind of want to make, everyone aware of how the integrations work inside of Lead Docket. Lead Docket actually has a pretty neat, straightforward way of integrating vendors or any third party inside of your Lead Docket account, and it's done via webhooks. So how we integrate in Lead Docket, anytime you want a opportunity coming into your system is via webhooks. And via webhooks, we're able to just provide that endpoint URL to that vendor. And they are able to then, if they do have a way on their system, right, to connect or integrate via webhooks, that is what they will use in order to push data into your system. So Lead Docket doesn't have its own kind of integration. It's done via webhooks. And I want to say majority of all of the platforms that I have worked with, and it's been, several years, they do have a integration webhook. So it is a very common integration. Ivan, if you want to pull in your integration key and let's add a new one so that they can see how those can be created.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll just pick up any here. So you'll give it a name. Ooh. I actually just best practice. I like to say this. Created on July 2nd, 2025 by Ivan. Doesn't hurt too many notes is never a problem. So I do like to do that. Yeah, here's one.
Awesome.
And I think just to Edie's point, all that I did when I create an integration here, even if I don't touch anything else, right? I just created an integration. If I go back to my integrations, all that I did is I created a endpoint, right? Here's my task for help. I just created an endpoint, basically. And what that is I created a URL that if you send a post in a webhook, and this gets a little more technical, but if you post something to that URL, it's going to show up in our lead docket. That's all that is if I go into this URL and I post something into it using any tool, I can use this, but I can use any other tools that can post to a webhook. Now I open the new door into our lead docket. I think of these as doors that I can open into our lead docket. So here's one. I don't know. I'll let you go, Edie, if you want, but this is the idea is every time you create an endpoint, you open a door into your lead docket that somebody can post something into. And you can configure that in different ways depending on the needs.
That's right. That's right. And the reason, one of the reasons we really recommend to this be kind of like your first source of integrating. And if you work with a vendor that really needs access to the back end of Lead Docket, which again, that's a more in-depth conversation, but I kind of want to let you know why we want to use the webhooks integration as our first option. And that is because Lead Docket only has one API key, meaning once you share it with the vendor, it is there to share at all times. And you can't revoke access to that API key. Once you give it to them, they have it. Doing the integration, you're able to turn those on and off. So if you stop working with the vendor, right, you can just turn off that integration and that integration page, disable it, and you don't have to worry about doing anything additional. So that is one of the reasons why we do recommend using the webhooks and using this integration because it is very straightforward to be able to provide these endpoint URLs to these vendors.
That's right.
And I'm sorry if you hear little toddler background noises.
No problem. I think this is good. So this is really the best way to get leads into your lead docket. And you do have some control over this as well, which is where you can say, all right, if this vendor here is if free help is gonna send me something, I can actually preset certain things. So I'm gonna say my marketing source is the most common one is I can already define it as something. So every time they send you a lead, that lead comes with pre-filled data already that you are determined as you control kind of that movement in. Okay. Um, that is in a nutshell. I think that the opportunity to open this integration endpoints. I do want to mention that there you see this button here that sometimes gets overlooked, and you can turn automatically into lead an opportunity into a lead. Be mindful there's this box that shows up, right? You do have to see it, put certain things preset certain things or make sure that these things already exist before you can turn it into a lead. But that's another kind of useful capability here. And you can add, by the way, since we're here, I think this is another important conversation, right? Is sometimes we hear a lot of this is like, oh, my vendor sent me a test into my opportunity box, but it's all blank, right? Or there's no mapping, all the names are blank. I don't know if we have a good test for that, but maybe we don't. But the idea is you don't mind all this stuff.
Go all the way down on that one, Ivan. I think we can kind of explain to them a little bit of where they need to look under the notes.
Yeah, well, that one doesn't even have it because it's all like ours are all fake.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe this one will have it because ours, oh, here it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there.
this one does. This one does. So you may see something like this where in your notes, you're going to see this all posted information and a long list of fields in here. I got one yesterday with Olivia that said like 1.0 Ivan, and then there was like 2.0 last name, and then 3.0 is like some weird stuff. What these is happening, what these is what's called the payload that is being posted into your lead docket. And these are the field names and the values. So they may be posting a bunch of things in here and their naming is not correct. So right now, if the name of our field is called first, lead docket is going to know where to put it. So there's a little bit of mapping that needs to be done when you're setting up your integration. So if you go in here into this integration again, I will set what I want it to be, each field. Go back into my, what was it? Did I remove the free help? You can set these fields to be whatever you want them to be, right? You can say, oh, pass me the gender, accept, and call it, whatever you want it to be. So you will build the fields that you want and make sure that they match what your vendor is sending you.
And then I also want to add a lot of times when you get opportunities inside of Lead Docket, I get a lot of clients that say, oh, well, that's a lead. Why isn't it in my lead numbers? I want you to know, and just like Ivan explained earlier, you do have the option to be able to convert an opportunity into a lead from that drop down that you saw earlier. But an opportunity, when that opportunity comes inside of Lead Docket, it is not considered a lead, meaning, and it's not considered a lead that you have actually created and taken an action on. If it's still under that opportunity bucket or box in Lead Docket, it's just an opportunity. So it's a lead that you have to reach out to, and until you update it, it will count as a lead that you have handled.
Correct. That's right. That's anything else? I think this is kind of a quick recap of this opportunity box and how you can use it to connect to vendors. Again, this is under manage and integrations. If you go into your lead docket right now, you can go in and check the ones you currently have going. I want to show you one more thing that I think is helpful and people don't know exists is under your reports. You may see there's this opportunities tab on the left side. You actually have a really nice way to see how many leads I'm getting for each one of my sources. There's a nice chart here. Ours is going to look blank, but maybe let's try this here. You will see how many leads you're getting for each one of your opportunity in endpoints, right? To use the right terminology. So this is like if you're in front of your lead docket now, you can go in here, go to reports, opportunities by source, and see which source is actually giving you leads. And you may find out that your integrations page has a ton of things, but you're just not getting anything from any of them because maybe they were set up a long time ago or something like that. So um, that's a way for you to see like, okay, I got this up, but am I getting leads from this? Well, you will have to go here under reports, again, opportunities and opportunities by source. Okay. What else? This is also another one, opportunity stats. This is interesting. This is by person. But actually I like this other one even better. Let me just show you another really cool report. I use this all the time. It's called opportunities list. And we'll have to like do a much larger period of time. And you'll see all of your opportunities, including the ones that have been disregarded, and you will see how long it took to process them. right? This one took 4 to 7 days. So you see how long it took to process those leads as well. This is also a nice way to look at this. Does this make sense? Things if we don't have any other questions, this will be kind of the main topic for today was just opportunities and how to connect to your vendors and how to integrate Lead Docket to your vendors. Did we miss anything, Edie?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything.
Okay. Our next one, I was thinking we could do one on Chase. So maybe we do one on like how to understand Chase and Lead Docket, because that's a conversation that we're having today that can be an interesting one. If no further questions, I think we can wrap up for today, and then maybe let me see. Oh, we got one question here. Let me pop up. Oh, how did I get you time to process? Good question. So here it is. If you go to reports, so here's under here on the left side, you go to reports, go to this list of reports, and then it's under opportunities. It should be your very first one. It should be this opportunities list. So when you get this opportunities list, you can, expand this time frame to look at however long you want. And then here's time to process. Time to process, I should say this is it's a metric that a lot of people really like to see, but you got to understand a couple of things about it. I've seen this get some confusion. What this is saying is that it took between the time that the opportunity was created and the time that it was turned into a lead, it took 22 minutes. Now, let me go back in here to show you. What this means is that it created an opportunity. It's the time between the opportunity was created and it was turned into a lead. It's not the time between the opportunity created and somebody opened it. And the reason why I say this is because I had a one firm who was tracking this, and then they realized that sometimes it was like 30 minutes, and they went to say, how come it took 30 minutes for you to do this? And it was actually because the intake person was on the call for 25 minutes with that opportunity. So if I call the opportunity, which is what they're supposed to do, right? They're supposed to open this and call the ED here and go through this conversation. If they do that, they still count the time. So this time to process can be, I hope this makes sense, but the time to process has to be kind of understood there to take in consideration the time that the person is actually working on the opportunity. Okay? Um, that's that time to process metric. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. If we don't have any other questions, again, this recording is available later on if you want to look at it. We also have, I should say, we're gonna do this. We're gonna still be doing this free help every Wednesday. We need to do a little bit of a better job getting, emails out to remind you and things like this, obviously. But if you want to bring your questions, bring your practical issues that you're having, we're happy to solve them here. And that is it. Thank you everybody for joining, and we will see you again next month.
All right, awesome. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye bye, everybody.